Over in Hong Kong, a coronavirus outbreak involving 9 people in a residential estate has ended a 16-day streak of zero local infections and has prompted the government to extend existing social distancing measures that are about to expire. They include extending a ban on public gatherings of more than 8 people until June 18th.
Chief Executive Carrie Lam expressed worry about this outbreak in the community, not because of the number of 9 confirmed patients, but also because this particular cluster reflects some characteristics which the city might not have seen before. Joining us now to discuss this is Hong Kong correspondent Claire Huang. Claire, can you elaborate on what Mrs. Lam said? Why is this particular cluster a cause for concern?
Hi, this is a local cluster with at least 9 people linked to the outbreak in Sha Tin. So a couple was first identified, and this cluster broke the 16-day streak where Hong Kong did not report any local transmission. So it's particularly worrying because experts have warned that there may be a super spreader whom authorities have not identified. So they do not know at the moment. So far, health authorities have collected more than 1,000 saliva samples from residents in the affected estate, and they're testing, right? So an infectious disease expert has urged the government to make it mandatory for the residents living in the estate and to place restrictions on their contact with other members of the public because it can spread very fast if that happens. While the Hong Kong Medical Association expressed a bit of an alarm over the fact that a paramedic who performed some procedures on the woman who was at the center of the cluster got infected even though he was wearing a surgical mask. So the association's point was that the medical worker was still at high risk despite precautions taken. And in light of this, public health experts from the Hong Kong University have also warned of the risk of another wave of outbreaks in the city. The analysis showed that of the more than 1,000 coronavirus cases here in Hong Kong, 20% of those who got infected were responsible for the transmission of the virus to 80% of all recorded cases.
Claire, we understand you also visited schools today as some students returned to the classrooms for the first time in 4 months. As you know, schools in Singapore reopened yesterday. Now, in terms of safe distancing measures, what main similarities or differences did you observe?
I think there will be a lot of overlap in simple things like wearing masks, washing your hands, having hand sanitizers, temperature checks, having tables spaced apart, markings on floors to indicate to have at least a minimum distance away from each other when you're in the queue. In Hong Kong, we also have staggered recesses and dismissals. So the basic precautionary measures are in place, and the Education Bureau here conducts spot checks to see how schools operate in the new norm. Instead of full day classes, we now have half day school, so as to avoid for the students to avoid having meals. Because this is when people take their masks off and the risk of getting infection is higher. So the Education Bureau has also put in place some arrangements because we've got cross-border students. We have about 27,000 of them. And the older students, of course, get to go back to school first. Mm-hmm. These students will travel via two ports, two border controls, basically Shenzhen Bay Port or the Futian Lok Ma Chau Spur Line Port. Now, these 2 ports have limited immigration clearance, especially for cross-border students and who are subject to health protection measures, of the 2 places. And then they are supposed to take school buses to travel between schools and boundary control points upon arrival in Hong Kong.
Well, Claire, let's change the subject to something a bit more political. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said Britain will change its immigration rules and offer millions of people in Hong Kong a route to citizenship if China imposes new security laws. How significant will this move be?
Even before Beijing's announcement on the national security law to be enacted in Hong Kong, right? Last year's unrest has driven some locals to explore their options out of Hong Kong. Malaysia, Taiwan, Singapore, they were all named as places of interest to them. So it's no surprise that this time round, there's renewed interest in this area. With that in mind, the UK's move will be very significant because it gives locals in this former British colony who are able to relocate, another option if they want to. There are about 350,000 holders of British national overseas passports in Hong Kong, and another 2.5 million are eligible. So that's quite significant, given that we've got a population of about 7 million here. Yeah.
Claire, just moving back to the situation in Hong Kong. Now, Hong Kong lawmakers resume a debate today over a controversial bill that would make disrespecting China's national anthem a criminal offence. What's the latest there?
Basically, the parliament is in session here, and they are supposed to resume debate over the national anthem bill, right? Which would criminalize, disrespecting China's national anthem. And the last time round, we had pan-democrats who were carried out by security. There was a lot of chaos, drama. They protested in the legislative chambers. And then the pro-Beijing camp was saying how they were disrupting the process, and they were the delay tactics leading to recesses, adjournments. So I believe there could be some drama again this time around.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Claire, for taking the time to speak with us. Happy to have you on the show as always. We've been speaking to Hong Kong correspondent Claire Huang.